Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to Pinball FX2. So today we're doing Tesla, which is another one of their non-licensed tables. There's actually probably really good reasons why Tesla should be a good table. Oddly, last time we did Blade, and of the remaining Marvel tables, I would have sworn Blade would have been the one that they got lazy on, and it turned out to be an amazing table. Possibly even better than Excalibur. Excalibur and Blade are right up there as my top two. I might go play Darth Vader if I wanted Star Wars, maybe Rebels, maybe The Force Awakens if I wanted Star Wars, and then maybe I do Portal and The Walking Dead because of my love of those two licenses, but that would probably be my top 4, top 5. Now, even though Tesla should be really good, we did come after Shaman here, and Shaman was possibly the worst for maybe non-pinball reasons, but pretty bad even for pinball reasons.
Tesla!
Let's see what the achievements are. Let's see, secure at least 500,000 points in funding hurry up mode. For a second there, I thought the achievement was going to just be get a certain amount of points, period, to get an achievement. And I kind of wish that was how they all worked. Just get over 1 million, get over the top first player local high score thing. Activate the teleforce by completing the other experiment on Tesla. So we probably won't get both of them done. We got both of them on Blade done, but that was kind of lucky, just because it was a decent table that let the ball stay and play pretty well. Look at this. Look at this. We've got this under the playfield table full of lights lining up. We've got a ramp there with a diverter, several tubes, lots of copper, another diverter, a clock on the backboard. It looks like a upper playfield with a magnetic field. I don't even know what we're supposed to do with that. A sneak-in cross shot with drop-down targets in front of it. Let's see, we're going to be spelling Tesla, I believe, or something. Looks like there's 5 missions in the teleforce. Over here, that looks like a cannon of some sort that must launch back into the tube over there and shoot the ball from that point. There's a sinkhole behind the pop-up bumpers, which are interesting looking pop-up bumpers anyways. Extra balls back there, some targets, ramps, cross shot there. How do I do that cross shot? There's a way to get back in the lane on the left side by nudging the ball.
Ice is operational!
So it looks slightly good so far. Look at this skill shot. We haven't seen too much of this. Missed it.
Voltage fluctuation!
So Tesla was the inventor who was doing a lot of inventions in DC current, which, while in short run circuitry, DC is definitely easier to work with and better. In long run electricity, AC is the right one to go by. In fact, it might even be arguable that we don't send enough AC current in our power lines, and if we went at a higher voltage with more phases, it might actually be better. But what we do is a 3-phase generation on the power lines at very high voltages that then get stepped down using transformers to about three-phase 240, and then the 240 gets split on most circuits into 120 or around there.
Voltage fluctuation.
It's actually not even that accurate. The voltage can go anywhere between 120 to averaging or staying at a max 115 and going down as low as 100. My battery backup, for example, on my computer won't even kick in until it's
Voltage fluctuation.
set to about 97 volts. So it can go down quite a bit. And those micro fluctuations hurt electronic parts. So getting clean power using a battery backup and such is helpful. It's a shame the two didn't just work together, because it's in both there's helpful truth.
Marvelous.
Actually, if we were going to make the standards today, instead of having 120 volts AC come out of the walls, we have so many digital things that at most just need 24 volts. If we just had 24 volt DC plugs, they could be a lot smaller and a lot more of them.
Nice shot.
More and more we see power plugs that have USB chargers on them, because that's what we need more than anything else.
Short circuit.
And you can run DC within a average size house. A mansion would possibly have trouble if you had a huge house. Very, very big. But inside an average size house, you could easily run DC at 24 volts, and it would be way safer depending on the current, and it would eliminate all the power brick transformers that everything comes with. And the European Union is certainly trying to make a standard and stick with a standard for a long time. Didn't get very far there. I'm gonna just play again so I can continue this conversation, and then we'll look at the table later. The table guide later. So the problem, I think, with the European Union standard of everybody has to use a standard, and assumably that's going to be USB-C, is, well, the iPhone still doesn't use USB-C in Europe. It just comes with an adapter, so you're still creating waste, and I'm not sure there's really any way they could stop them from saying, well, USB-C is the old standard, and in 2 years they'll come out with USB-D or something, and then that's the new standard, which is kind of exactly what they're trying to avoid, because micro USB was the old standard, and they're replacing that with USB-C slowly. There. But if you just had one transformer in your fuse box at a house, it would be much more power efficient and just space efficient. Well, not much more power efficient, just slightly more power efficient. Oh, I suppose it's worth mentioning that I took 2 years of electronics in school, and so I actually know quite a bit of electronics, know how not to kill myself, or at least the proper and professional way to kill myself with electricity. I've been electrocuted probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times at 120 volts, but personally have a pretty high resistance, so it's not as big of a deal as you would think. But certainly not something you'd want to repeat. And of course that is how Edison discredited Nikola Tesla, as he made a film of in which they use DC current to electrocute and kill an elephant. And I'm sure they did some other PR smearing stuff. But frankly, we need both. We don't need AC particularly for any actual in-device, but we definitely need it for transmission of power. If you tried to do DC on the power lines, it would drop down really, really fast, and you wouldn't be able to get it as far. And that's a problem. I got a multi-ball. But the only devices that we still have pretty commonly in our houses that need AC power are motors, like in the compressor in your air conditioner or your refrigerator, the motor in your dryer or your washing machine. So the big ticket appliances. If you're running an electric oven, then you probably would want AC for the heater coil, because the heater coils are often just big old resistors running on AC powers to make heat, and light bulbs. The old-fashioned light bulbs, which in the United States are no longer available for sale, or at least severely restricted from sale or something. So with the LEDs and the CFL fluorescent bulbs, those light bulbs actually have transformers in the base of them to just turn the AC into DC. So there's actually an incredible amount of transformers. Inside your computer, there is a transformer, or unless it's a laptop and there's that big power brick, then the transformer is in the power brick. But inside the computer electronics, it's immediately turned down to DC, and there's a few channels of 24 volts, there's a few channels of 12 volts, and then 6 volts, and I think 3 volts? I don't think it gets down to 1.5 in most computers, but as electronics get more efficient, they need less voltage. So as we get our cell phones, for example, lower and lower, the processors and such can run on less and less power. And notice the lock up here again while we were playing a laggy game. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that one of their oldest tables here would be a little bit laggy and buggy, but it's not acceptable. Hey, we got the ball stuck again, and it adjusted for it. So the thing about Tesla too, as we're talking here, is there's things we know Tesla did, things we know Tesla wanted to do, and things conspiracy theorists think Tesla did do. Tesla was working, at least in part, on transmitting wireless power everywhere, which we have wireless power now. That's what Wi-Fi is. That's what the no contact wireless charging on cell phones are. But the problem is it's never been very powerful. It's the worst attempt at pushing power, because effectively what you're trying to do is shoot lightning from one place to another. And to shoot lightning from one place to another, you have to have tens of thousands of volts to start off with, to maybe end up with way less voltage at the end. And the only reason why we even have lightning on this planet is because all the sand and dust and dirt is getting blown around. It's actually a longer system than that. The sun is the only provider of energy that we know of, and natural energy. Nuclear power, I suppose, in theory, provides energy from it. But the sun provides the earth energy, and in the form of heat and radiation. And that causes winds, and the winds cause the dirt to get blown around, and the dirt causes static electricity, which eventually builds up, and once the humidity and the conditions are close, then you have a thunderstorm where the ions and the electrons that had been separated by the wind reconnect. So the ions go up high into the atmosphere and they want to connect back to the electrons in the ground or something like that. I'm not exactly certain about that, but that's pretty much how it happens. And so wireless electricity doesn't work on a human scale, except for when you're really, really close to the two things, and it barely even works then. Now, we may quickly, in the next 100 years or so, find a way to transmit subatomic particle energy in a massive amount of power. If we could change quantum entangled particles in such a way and harvest energy of the change of a spin of a quantum entangled particle, then you might actually have a universal wireless energy that actually works and could work forever. But I imagine that we're 100 years at least away from this. Let's read the instructions here though, instead of just talking. So if we can get it to the multiplayer playfield for the vertical up kicker, which is that thing, then you use the electromagnetic force to shoot the ball clear the way through the drop ball drop targets. So the device behind it is going to pull it towards the drop targets. Depending on which habit rail the ball will use to exit the mini playfield, then the experiment will get underway, or another one will be selected. So that's the only way to start experiments? Oh, that's gonna kind of suck. Steam cannon. I don't know if Tesla ever had a steam cannon or did anything with them, but whatever. Let's see. Aimed cannon shot. Seems like in that case you can actually aim yourself. Funding hurry up is by hitting those. Secret lab is by hitting those and getting back there, which is going to be a difficult place to get. So the pop-up bumpers are secret lab. Multi-ball by hitting those. Steam frenzy by hitting those. Magna save. Shoot the ramp coil a couple times to light up the magna save, then use the launch button at the right time to use it. So I'm going to have to hit the launch button to use magna save. I'm not a fan of that being controlled by the launch button. And then there's two ways to get extra balls, not even that many. Not a lot going on with this table. But let's think about, is this the right way to do something like Tesla? It probably is. They could use a magnet or something. It doesn't seem like the clock means anything. The clock might simply be a counter of your score. More magnets, more electricity themed things. Maybe. Put some more elements in here. I really can't make the usual complaint of too many ramps, because they've managed to cut the number of ramps in half by having the diverters. So there's only 2 ramps here and maybe 3 lanes. And then we have the upper play field, we have this lower score display, which doesn't seem like it does anything, which is kind of a shame. But it's nice looking. See, if this was a real pinball table, you'd have to make all these light bulbs out of plastic. There's no way you could have a light bulb a real light bulb unprotected in a pinball table, it would break. And just the rattling and shaking of the table would break the bulbs anyways. But that's probably pretty easy to fake with the LEDs that look like light bulbs. LEDs have a problem though as far as they're replacing light bulbs. They don't give you a pure white so if you're trying to actually film things or see things under the right appropriate shade, if you're an artiste, even if you buy the best LEDs, you're still probably not going to get a very bright enough or pure enough white light out of it. And it's a shame, and hopefully they'll improve that technology, but I'm not sure exactly what they could do to improve it too much. LEDs have been around for a long time.
Amazing!
I don't think that they'll probably come up with any other technology. Well, we have organic LEDs, so if they could make organic LED light bulbs, that would probably look a little bit better. But I doubt they're going to make plasma light bulbs. Or think of something else. I really don't know that much about Tesla, so just probably slightly more than the average person. Is a pretty good fandom of him. Some of the conspiracy theorists think his wireless energy transmissions actually worked, and he shot a big ball of energy into a forest in Russia and effectively blew the place up. It's highly unlikely he did. It's kind of the same thing that they thought the people making the nuclear bomb were going to blow up the whole world. Even the people in charge thought that they might blow up the whole world. It was such a new technology, and there was so much worrying and speculation about it. The United States government actually set off an atomic bomb in the atmosphere above, I think, Nevada, and they weren't certain that it wasn't going to just burn all the hydrogen in the atmosphere and burn the entire planet, and they still set it off. And I'm like, wait a minute. I guess the scientists were pretty certain that wasn't going to happen, but they didn't even put it on the other side of the planet to make sure if it did burn half the planet's atmosphere, it would burn the other sides. They put it right over the United States. So in some different reality, the U.S. potentially blew itself up to smithereens on a nuclear weapons test. And in some potential different reality, Tesla blew up the world, and that's it. Since we're speaking about electricity here, I watched a video about why the British plugs are the best plugs, they say, or this guy was saying, that have ever been designed. And they kind of are, but they're also kind of a huge waste of materials too, which violates one demand, I would say, for making a power plug, because British plugs have these 3 square plugs in a kind of smiley face pattern, two on the left and right, and one in the center that's on a lower level. and
Marvelous.
they're insulated in such a way that the plug does not make any contact until the ground plug is plugged in, and then it opens up some doors and lets the phase 1 of power and phase 2 of power come in. There's also has to be a fuse in every single plug, and there's a switch on almost every single outlet, which again, it's just a lot of extra materials which I assume that probably means that in the UK they have a lot less outlets than what you would have in a typical United States house. And then the rest of the world has all kinds of different standards for plugs and outlets, and they're all a big mess. It'd be nice if there was a universal thing there. Again, my preference would be 24 DC voltage on a round plug that had a shielded ground on the outside and positive DC current on the inside. But it would be quite a transition to get to that point, and you would still probably need something for the big ticket items. But in the United States, for the big ticket items like washers and dryers, well, usually dryers, that's 3-phase 240 anyway, so they already have their own special plug. I do like the ideas behind the British plug. It's just huge. It's too big. It has too many parts in it. It's got some good ideas. It's probably pretty safe, but not for everybody. And somebody was trying to promote a different variation on it, but of course, getting anybody in the construction industry to change anything or adopt a new standard is going to be things. Turns out, by the way, in the United States, if you have a 3-pronged grounded plug, one of the safeties and standards boards has it where the ground is actually supposed to be on top. And in most household builds, because the electrical wiring is usually done by somebody who's less than qualified or doesn't follow that standard, they put the ground at the bottom, and that for my entire life is exactly how I've always seen every outlet like that. Of course, where I am, they don't really even follow the grounding specifications correctly anyway, so often those ground plugs are connected to the wrong thing or not connected to anything at all, so any safety precaution that they would add is actually just null and void. The only reason they even have the ground plugs is a safety precaution. It's not something that, if there was a perfect closed system where there would never be a wire coming loose or shocking the outside of a case, you wouldn't need them. You just want them. It protects your electronics. When buying a house, one of the best investments you can do is spend $10, go get an outlet checker, and stick it in all the outlets of the houses you're thinking about purchasing, because the older the house, the more likelihood that somebody has gotten up there and wired something without a license, because homeowners, particularly older homeowners of previous generations, would do stuff like that. They would fix their house and wire the electricity, and they had no skill or training towards it, so who knows if they did it right or not. And while you're testing the outlets, you can see if they are screwed in tightly, if face plates are cracked, if there's water damage or something else around them, if they're burnt or fried around them. And you can do that while you're looking at the house to just see, has there been proper maintenance done to a house, or has there been improper additions or modifications done to the house. One of the things I did, so there's two magnets on the left and right that you control with the flippers on that. It took forever to get up there, and I still didn't start a mission, unless I just started a mission and I don't recognize it. Like when I bought my house, I wired it for a whole home smoke detector system, which was a huge waste of energy and time. So special smoke detectors that are wired into the electricity, and if one goes off, it will set the others off at a different time. So say there was a fire or smoke coming out of your kitchen, which generally you don't want to put a smoke detector in your kitchen anyways, you want to put it in the hallway away from it, but if it went off in the kitchen, it would go beep 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 in there, then it would stop in the kitchen and go beep 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 everywhere else. So if you're in a really big house, that might be helpful. Unfortunately, the house I installed it in was actually an incredibly tiny house, and there was really no reason for it. It was just silliness on my part, which is always a problem when you buy your first house. You're gonna probably want to add things and do modifications to it. It's the better attitude, I think, if you're gonna like change or paint a room or add a ceiling fan or something. Simple things like that. You would want to do that to your liking when you first buy a house, so you can enjoy it for the whole time you have that house, versus trying to repair a house 5 seconds before you have to sell it, because then you're not getting much of an investment return there. Even at that though, I have come to the decision that even simple things like switching out ceiling fans and it are not worth the danger and the effort of doing it wrong. So hiring an electrician, even as a person who knows how electricity works and can do it perfectly safe, I still choose not to do it. It's just too much hassle. Better to have somebody else to blame when they screw it up than do it myself and only have to blame myself. You can certainly paint your own house. You don't need to hire painters. And painting is maybe the only thing I would say you could do. Change your own light bulb, certainly. Don't pay somebody to do that for you, but if you're talking roofing, if you're talking structural construction, or even just plastering, you probably don't have the skills for it. And if you do, you know you have the skills for it, and then you're fine. There's a lot of plumbing stuff you can probably do yourself, or at least try to do yourself instead of getting ripped off by plumbers. Alright, I gotta get it up there.
Voltage fluctuation.
Here we go. So we did that once.
Fantastic. Short circuit.
So let's focus on this table, since I've had a long conversation here about electronics. This is one of my series, like the original series I did when I first started my channel, where you end up having a lot of free time. And I was recently thinking about, why don't I just talk about random things while I'm playing the game like I used to as much. And it really is because most games, you don't have boring parts. you don't have a second to spare. I can barely half the time covering most games even find a second of silence to even comment on the gameplay and the design. Pinball, on the other hand, there's not a ton to say in comparison to other games. In general, I like this table. I think they could have probably done a little bit more with it. It would be funny if they had a Van de Graaff generator, which is kind of what that tower thing is there, but if they had a working one, that would be kind of funny. Then it shot the ball, but I don't know if that would be safe to have one of those running. They could have one of those balls that you touch your hands to and it gets the lightning bolts. That is actually a Van de Graaff generator too, but it's in a vacuum. I guess though you can't have a Van de Graaff generator in a Tesla thing because Tesla is not Van de Graaff. But you could probably get away with doing that. I only have like 1 million points. Seems strange. I've been playing a while, but this just again feels like one of those tables that if you're not playing right, if you're not actually getting things done, you won't get very many points. And you may not get very many points anyways. And see, that thing there is trying to spin the ball around. I don't know what that would work. We've been going 36 minutes and we've lost a decent amount of time. And my high score is 2 million. I think if I shot the ball at full power, I might be able to get it to go back into the plunger. Sometimes plungers have like... Oh, how'd they get over there?
Experiment underway.
There we go, we started an experiment. And we lose. I imagine you could put DC current into a light bulb and it would work. It probably would just not work as well.
Short circuit.
I don't know, I've never tried it. And I have a decent amount of electronics equipment that I really shouldn't have. I should get rid of because I don't use it. I should hand it over to somebody who might actually go into the field. I took electronics as part of my dream and idea of being a video game programmer, so I figured, well, let's understand the underlying factor of computers and electronics so that in case that might come up. Now, at the time I was taking it, in my day and age, it would have never come up, and it most definitely won't come up. But it is exactly how they made Pong. Pong was 100% depicted and created using circuitry and electronics in an oscilloscope-like fashion, which an oscilloscope is a vacuum tube device that, well, it used to be a vacuum tube device, I guess now it's a LCD screen like everything else. It depicts the waveforms of DC and AC, and by doing very complicated math, that's how they drew the lines in the ball and the paddle for Pong. Was by manually telling the screen there to do it. And you can actually get fun to play on an oscilloscope, but few people can, maybe. And I've seen somebody even get Doom to run on an oscilloscope, which is an amazing experiment, because hardly looks very good since it's just a one-color green monitor usually. And that's pretty high-level electronics. If you take the first year of electronics in school, you'll probably only be dealing with much simpler things like testing and reading voltages, resistance, and calculating resistance drops a lot. You won't be doing high-level integrated circuit logic or complicated mathematical electronic formula. But you probably, if you're lucky, will get to put together a radio, which is one of the things I built. We did several kits. We did a radio. We did blinking LED lights for Christmas, Christmas tree or something like that. Did some other stuff. A lot of desoldering of other parts, because we would have junk like TV boards and computer boards, and we would just desolder things from them to practice on desoldering those and soldering. Occasionally, if we were very careful, we would fix a TV, but you have to be very, very careful about TVs because they have very high voltage capacitors in them. Well, the old TVs did. The tube TVs, that's what we were fixing. It was a real fun time. And in my case, the electronics class was also the same teacher as the computers class, so I picked up a lot about building computers and such also. I guess I have to say this table's pretty boring though. I don't have a lot to say about it. I wouldn't change too much. I would put some more magnets. I would really love to see if you could shoot electricity or make sparks up here, but it would be very, very dangerous to have any of that on the table in the real. I guess the truth though is, since this is a virtual table, they've really dropped the ball on doing something you couldn't do in the real world, because you could have the ball get hit by lightning like non-stop here. You could electrify the whole thing. You could, as you're going up in multi-ball, just have everything glow and sparkle with electricity like crazy. And like, it could be a lightning multi-ball with let's say hit the set the grounding rod, and until you set the grounding rod, it just got crazier and crazier with more electricity everywhere. You could certainly also have a spinner or something here that is increasing the current in amperage, or it could be increasing the voltage in volts. They could increase the wattage if you knew the resistance too, but yeah, I think I would go more electricity and less Tesla, but then I'd also want to do some research if I was making this table on Tesla and see if there were some other elements we could do. The cool thing about electricity is it's all around us, even when we don't know. So that's why if you go to a science show, they'll probably pull out a Van de Graaff generator and have somebody hold a fluorescent bulb in their hand, and it will magically light up because of all the static electricity in the air from the Van de Graaff generator. So apparently you increase the bonus multiplier by hitting the bumpers. Not really having a story here is kind of the problem. I think I may have would have embraced the Tesla Edison fight a little bit more. I guess the fear there is if you do that, then you have to admit that Edison really won. But I'm not sure Tesla was really even interested in this battle, and it wasn't just one guy doing all kinds of propaganda. The fact that Edison succeeded also is a great example of how easy it is today and then to be in control of the news and the story and turn the minds of the masses. So that's why it's important to get your information from multiple independent sources, as independent as they can be, and try to encourage as many different news reporters to exist as possible, which is certainly part of the reason why I'm here. I'm an independent video game critic, to give my opinion. That way you don't have to just listen to the opinion of the big people that may have more ties than me to the video game industry, who are trying to sell you something. In the same way Edison was trying to sell you on AC electricity. And of course there were also people trying to sell on steam engines and gas engines, diesel engines, all kinds of competing forms of energy. It is not beyond the realm of possibility that for a long time they would have just put, instead of running electricity from power stations, they would have just brought diesel to people, and people run generators to power their house at night. That's still what you do if you're in a cabin or off the grid for some other reason. You'd have to run a diesel engine. And if you're a big office building and you want battery backups for your entire building, you're going to have a diesel engine and lots of batteries to wait until the diesel engine kicks in. That's why if you look around buildings, you often see these big squares that are hidden from sight. And usually if those aren't the garbage bins, those are the generators, diesel engines, and batteries. Batteries are probably inside. I'd say the diesel engines are outside because of the gases they might give off. I worked in an office that had one of those, and the power still went out, and it didn't make a lot of sense. I was like, particularly since when I was working in the office, 7 out of the 8 floors were completely abandoned and empty. So there was nobody even on them. And I guess they didn't check to see if those things worked often enough. Or they didn't pay for the gas. Are we close enough here for this to be our last game? I think that we can be, maybe. I'm still not sure about that dynamo. It feels like it's trying to move the ball somewhere, but then it just stops. I don't understand. Am I supposed to nudge the ball towards the dynamo more? One of the primary things that direct current can do that AC can't do is it can be run through circuitry that is one directional using diodes and such. So if the electricity tries to go one way, a diode will have very little resistance, approaching zero resistance, And if it tries to go the other way, it will have resistance approaching infinite resistance. That way you can send signals and create the electronic pathways that all electronic devices use. AC can't really work that way, and you have to think on a completely different system if you're trying to make an AC circuit. It's gotta, because the electricity is gonna go both ways, and you'll just have to learn to live with it. Well, that's 50 minutes, so we're about 5 minutes short here. I'm pretty done with this table. I've been bored with it, just talking. I'm more interested in the concept of electricity than I am with this table. It's a fine table, but I wouldn't probably go back and play it. I'd much prefer go back and play Blade or Excalibur. Starting the missions is pretty difficult here, and getting multi-ball was pretty difficult, and we're not getting a very good score even when we did get a pretty good game, although I don't know if we got that good of a game. So our high score of almost 3 million adds to our other high scores, giving us a super score of 2,085. That multiplies by the 55 tables we played to give us a Blizzard score of 114,675. Let's see the achievements. Score at least 5,000 points in the funding hurry up. We never even started that. Activate the teleforce by completing all the other experiments. I don't even know if we completed or even started any of the experiments. It didn't give me any audio feedback like that. Maybe I wasn't paying that much attention. Here we have 2 billion, 2 billion, 1 billion, then 700,000, then 500,000, 400,000, 200,000, down to 160 million, not thousand, but 160 million. So if I got 2 million, I didn't even do that well. I didn't even make it to the top. So if I got 5 million, you multiply that by 20, that would be 10 million, 100 million. And 160 million is about 40 times above what the local high score is. So I could kind of understand this one, maybe this one, maybe this one, even this one, but once you start to jump up to almost 500 million, and then you're up to a billion, and then 2 billion, 2.5 billion, I'm pretty sure all those people cheated. And in the same fashion, I'm pretty sure most of these people cheated, because I'm at 2,000 for my super score right now, and that is way, way lower than 74,000, and we're almost out of tables here. And the Pinball Wizard mode, same thing, bunch of cheaters. Challenges, no friends yet. Pinball King, no friends yet. I didn't do very good here. Played several games and got above the million, but this actually doesn't help any. If I can't beat 5 million, I'll never push anything down. So I would have to get over 5 million 10 times still, regardless of how many times these here, because these scores are just going to get pushed down lower and lower and lower and lower. So that's how that works. And of course, no tournaments running, never going to be any tournaments running. So that's Tesla. I say it's nowhere as offensive as Shaman, certainly, and it has some stuff in it that's interesting. Definitely something you might go back and play, but I would just say it's about average. That's probably as best as I can say. Just average, slightly boring, but average. Next time we're gonna do Marvel Iron Man, and then we come back to El Dorado. We don't have any Star Wars levels left to do, and we're quickly wrapping up here. We have, I believe, 6 episodes remaining. We're doing the countdown. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps out. If you want to support me further, you can click on my name, Rydo. On the right is a blue button that says support this channel. Click it, make a donation. And if you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.